Many childminders look at taking on an assistant or deciding to work or employ a co-childminder, with some deciding to do this straight from registration. The following presentation goes through the difference between these options. So what do you need to know about assistants and co-childminders? To be a childminder and work on domestic premises, 2 to 3 childminders or a childminder plus assistants can work together at any one time. This can include childminders who use a bank of people, who work different days or step in when there's sickness. This is similar to how you can have more children on your books than allowed on your ratios, as not all children attend at the same time. It's about making sure you do not exceed the correct number of staff at any one time. If you plan to work with more people than mentioned, you will need to register with Ofsted as childcare on domestic premises. You can, however, have a childcare registration alongside a childcare on domestic premises register for those days when you have lower numbers of staff and children. You can have more flexibility working with other childminders than you do with assistants. Working with an assistant. So firstly, we'd like to say that there is much more responsibility taken on by you, the childminder and employer, when looking at taking on an assistant. Assistants must be registered with Ofsted, who need to be informed of a new member of staff within 14 days of them starting their role. They're usually employed by the childminder, and you must register with HMRC as an employer because they'll be on your payroll. Assistants over the age of 25 must be on the living wage, and those under 25 must be on minimum wage. The childminder must also have employer's public liability insurance. Assistants will not need a health declaration form completing, but they will need a DBS check. When you become a childminder, Ofsted are responsible for checking your suitability. But when you take on an assistant, the responsibility to check that suitability is yours as part of the safer recruitment process. Assistants can be left alone with children for up to 2 hours a day if they have a full, valid paediatric first aid course certificate, and of course you will need permission from parents. It's your responsibility to keep assistants up to date with training and provide regular supervisions. These supervision meetings should take place when children are not present and should always be documented. Assistants also need to be aware of policies and procedures of your setting well enough to be able to talk to Ofsted about them when they come and visit. Ratios. So long as space requirements are adhered to, then having an assistant will mean that you can double your ratios. You can also have assistants to take on key children and be responsible for their paperwork. We're now going to look at working with co-childminders and how this differs from working with assistants. And the first thing to say is that co-childminders will have been registered as a childminder in their own right by Ofsted, and Ofsted will have decided if they're suitable. They will have completed introductory training, which includes their paediatric first aid and pre-registration checks, such as DBS checks and health declaration forms. Co-childminders can be self-employed or employed, depending on how you would like your business to run. There is no limit to how long a co-childminder can be left alone with children, as they're registered in their own right. Co-childminders are responsible for their own number of children and for the paperwork required for those children that they care for. It will be their responsibility to keep themselves up to date with training, etc., although as a lead childminder you can still have that discussion about which CPD you believe is suitable. If the co-childminder wishes to be employed, supervisions are still necessary and should be documented. If they are going to be self-employed, it's their responsibility to register with HMRC and pay tax and insurance. They will also have their own public liability insurance.